In 1966, the Cultural Revolution erupts in Beijing. A university physics professor gets beaten in front of a large crowd because he taught the theory of relativity to his students, and because Einstein went to the American imperialists and helped them build the atomic bomb. They then bring out his wife, who turns against her husband. Their daughter watches as the Red Guards beat her father to death. In 2024 London, Clarence investigates the suicide of a scientist. On the wall, the doctor wrote a countdown using his blood, and the sentence, "I will see it." Apparently, he's not the first doctor to commit suicide. At Oxford University Particle Accelerator, physics research assistant Saul tells his boss Vera that all of their theories are wrong. All of the physics of the past 60 years is wrong, which means that science is broken. Vera praises him, saying that he still demonstrates great potential for future scientific accomplishment. She then asks him if he believes in God. He says he doesn't. He accepts that this defies all known laws of physics, but he doesn't think it's an argument for God. Vera wonders what's left. She then heads to the accelerator and jumps to her death. Augie Salazar is a nanotech researcher, and Jane is a senior researcher in the theoretical physics group. The latter is doing a meta-study analyzing the results of particle accelerator experiments around the world. The two women are members of the Oxford group, as well as Saul. They're at the bar drinking and discussing what happened a month ago, as all the major accelerators started generating nonsense results. Jane explains that these experiments teach them how the universe works. The two women then head out for a smoke. Saul calls Augie, and all of a sudden she starts seeing a countdown. She asks a man if he sees it, but he doesn't. Jane takes the call and reveals that Vera just killed herself. Clarence investigates Dr. Vera's suicide and adds her photo to the bulletin board. Two last members of the Oxford group physics teacher, Will Downing and Jack Rooney, attend Vera's funeral. Jin is also there, accompanied by her boyfriend, naval officer Raj Sharma. Clarence is outside snapping pictures of the five scientists, as well as Mike Evans, a billionaire who seems to know Vera's mother. The Oxford group share some drinks at a pub and talk about Vera. They notice how Augie is absent-minded. She leaves to grab a cigarette and meets Tatiana, who knows about her countdown. She asks Augie how much time she has left. She advises her to put an end to her nanofiber research and shut down the lab, because nothing good ever happens at zero. Tatiana also asks her to look up at the sky tomorrow at midnight. Augie finds an old decoder in a breakfast cereal that the woman leaves for her. The woman promises that the universe will wink at her. In Inner Mongolia, China, 1967, the professor's daughter Wenji is forced to work at a labor camp. A fellow comrade called Bai Mulin talks to her about the consequences of the deforestation. Since she reads English, he gives her a book titled Silent Spring, which was very influential in the West. It's about how people are poisoning the world. It's like reading into the future if humans persist with the destruction. He warns her not to let anyone see it. Mulin and Wenji become friends as they stroll together in the forest. They also become lovers. One day, the labor soldiers find the book in her bunk. They confront her about it, calling it a toxic propaganda, and vow to punish her if she is protecting someone. Mulin is also present but is unable to help her. She chooses to protect Mulin and gets taken to the division headquarters. Tang Lihua of the Intermediate People's Court visits Wenji in prison and claims she knows of her own accomplishments as a scholar, so she doesn't want her talent to go to waste. She hands her a paper and asks her to sign it, take a political class, and she'll be approved to rejoin the construction corps. Tang Lihua also wants her to testify against others in her father's field who are still spreading dangerous ideas as they lack evidence against them. She shows her her mother's signature, but Wenji refuses. Tang Lihua warns her that the Military Control Commission will prosecute her. Wenji remains adamant not to testify, prompting the woman to dump a bucket of freezing water on her. Wenji is then driven to Red Coast Base, a military base where she meets Lei, a political commissar. as well as Yang, chief engineer. They show her an article she wrote as a scholar and explain that they have a need for her specific talents. So the commission has decided to give her a chance to rehabilitate herself rather than being imprisoned. They reveal that their research at the military base is of the highest security classification. They warn her that if she stays, she'll never leave. Wenji accepts to stay there for the rest of her life. In 2024, we learned that Clarence has been fired from Scotland Yard, MI5, and OSCT. Jane visits Vera's mother, who turns out to be Wenji. Wenji tells Jane that Vera was playing a video game and quite a lot. She shows her a shiny virtual reality headset that Vera was using. Jane then spots a photo of Wenji standing near the radar PIC satellite in another life, her first job. Jane tests the VR helmet that takes her to a desert with a pyramid. She starts playing the first level. The sun then rises and Jane spots a dead body on the ground. Jane screams in shock and takes it off. Clarence and his colleague discuss the same helmet. A man named Wade wants it as well because he thinks they're highly relevant. Clarence explains that governments aren't too keen on the notion of science being broken. In 1967, Wenji gets to see her first Red Coast test after 3 months. They are using the satellite to test the transmission that kills all the birds in the area. Wenji realizes that they tested the coordinates for the target. Wenji gets summoned by the base's commissar and engineer Yang. They inform her of the true nature of the Red Coast project. Red Coast is not an experimental weapons program. They're actually trying to communicate with whomever is out there in the universe. In 2024, Augie and Saul look at the sky at midnight, just like that woman said. The stars start flickering, and Saul realizes that it's Morse code. He uses the decoder and deduces that the flickering is giving them numbers 10, 34, 0, 6, 5, 4, 3, and they match the countdown that Augie is seeing. Wenji and Saul talk about the blinking stars. Despite everyone seeing the phenomenon, none of the satellites, including Webb, Hubble, and Cheops, saw it. Saul believes it never happened. Augie demonstrates her extraordinary vision as she invented the world's finest nanofiber, 3,000 times finer than human hair, that can cut through diamond. Since she is chief scientific officer, she orders everyone to shut down the project. As she steps outside, the countdown ends. Clarence shows up, offering to explain why the stars flickered for her. At the Red Coast base in 1968, Wenji and Yang talk about how for years they've been transmitting the message. She explains that it's the Fermi paradox, as there are 100 billion stars in the galaxy, and many of them must have planets similar to Earth, and many of these planets must have developed intelligent life. So she wonders where everybody is. Wenji thinks their signal is too weak. She explains how the sun amplified the radio waves from Jupiter, so they can use the sun as a super antenna by aiming their signal at it. Yang presents Wenji's idea to Commissar Lei without giving her any credit. Lei believes it's a radical idea, as aiming a super powerful radio beam at the red sun is dangerous, considering its political symbolism. He forbids it as it could get them all executed. Wenji ignores his warning and uses the sun to amplify the next transmission. In 2024, Clarence shows Augie a security footage of the alley she was in with Tatiana, except Augie was all alone, talking to no one. Clarence then shows her how someone lit her cigarette in the footage. He believes that someone scrubbed the woman out of it. Clarence shares with her that other doctors and professors had seen the countdown and committed suicide. Jin plays the VR game and meets a man called the Count of the West and his follower. Jin chooses another name for herself that befits a hero, since her mission is to solve the riddle of the world. She chooses the name Copernicus. Together they go to the pyramid to meet Emperor Zhou. The Count explains that it's a chaotic era, and except for stable eras, all times are chaotic eras. When a new era arrives, the emperors consult great minds about the movements of the sun. If the emperor is wrong, an entire civilization will be destroyed. Just then, the sun rises, prompting Jin and Co. to hide under a shade. They sacrifice Follower as there isn't enough shade for the three of them. Jin watches as the girl dries. Count explains that the girl isn't dead, as those who dehydrate fast enough can be preserved. They rehydrate them when a stable era arrives. Jack tries the game and is astonished at how realistic it is. A woman called Sofan shows up and tells him that he wasn't invited. Then she slashes him with her katana. Jack tells Jin that the game isn't normal, as he could smell the air, feel the cold, and taste the dirt. He believes that the game is too advanced. Clarence visits his wife's grave, and Tatiana also happens to be there. They talk about the loss of their loved ones. We learn that her father was shot in the head. Tatiana walks away from Edith Marsh's grave. Jack heads home and finds a VR helmet and a card that says, "We invite you to play." Jack plays and is wearing custom skins and is transported to England. Sir Thomas More approaches him, but Jack punches him in the face. Follower is also there. Jack touches Moore's face, then introduces himself as Jack, but Moore tells him to choose a better name, prompting Jack to punch him again. Later, Will confides in Jack that he is dying from stage 4 pancreatic cancer as it spread all over. He has 2 to 6 months to live. Jack refuses to accept that and calls Will out for giving up easily. Count tells Emperor Zhou that he has created a code for the universe, with which he can predict the movements of the sun. He shows him the code, but Jin thinks it's prophecy, not prediction. She tells the Emperor that it's not scientific, but divination, and it won't solve his problem. The Count announces that the code is complete and explains that the chaotic era will last another 8 days, then it will be safe to rehydrate the masses, and they will enjoy a glorious stable era for 63 years. Jin puts her hand on the ground to speed up time. The Count then advises the Emperor to awaken his dynasty and let it prosper. The stable era begins and people are rehydrated. We see how their dry bodies are thrown in the water, and moments later they become alive. Jin throws Follower's body last and is happy to reunite with her. Just then, a chaotic era starts. The Count made a mistake. Jin sees as the people freeze to death. She attempts to save Follower, but she freezes and crumbles. So Fan shows up and announces that civilization number 137 was obliterated by extreme cold. She states that Jin didn't save them, but she did establish the superiority of science over mysticism. She urges her to use science in level 2 to save the next civilization. Clarence heads to Thomas Wade's office to brief him on his inquiry regarding Mike Evans. Apparently the man likes paying for things related to anti-vax propaganda, 5G conspiracy theories, and anti-science politicians around the world. Clarence also dug up the WOW signal. He explains that in 1977, Ohio State University detected a 72-second sequence that they called the WOW signal. The scientists said it looked like an attempt at communication from aliens. No one has been able to decode it, and nobody outside of Ohio State detected it, except for one observatory in northeast China. Mike Evans lived there in 1977. In 1977, Wenji visits Mike Evans' home and asks why he is in her country. He explains that he is trying to save a species of bird. He also planted trees. Wenji reveals that they're looking for a site to build a radio astronomy laboratory. Mike refuses to give them the land and let them ruin an entire ecosystem for a radio lab. Wenji says that it isn't up to her. Before she leaves, she quotes a sentence from Silent Spring and promises to try to stop them. Later, Wenji suggests using Site 1, but her superior refuses as he realizes that she is trying to help the American. Weinin tells her about Tang Hongjin, who used to be a Red Guard. She is the girl who dealt a fatal blow to her father. Wenji heads to the labor camp to see the girl who lost an arm. Wenji wants Hongjin to repent, but the girl asks who will atone for what she has lost. She explains that the party sent her to Shaanxi to work the wheat fields and her arm was infected with gangrene. The guards pinned her down and cut it off her. Hongjin says that no one repents. Later, Wenji monitors comms at the station. A signal is detected and its coherence rating is AAA. It's almost certainly intelligent communication. On the screen appears a message that reads, "Do not answer," 3 times. "I'm a pacifist in this world. You're lucky that I am the first to receive your message. I'm warning you, do not answer. If you respond, we will come. Your world will be conquered. Do not answer." Wenji is shocked, so she heads outside. She returns and aims the antenna at the sun. She types in, "Come, we cannot save ourselves. I'll help you conquer this world." At CERN in Switzerland, the 32nd Doctor commits suicide. Clarence finds a VR helmet locked away in a safe. Augie finds Jack's VR and tries the game, but she gets killed by Sofan. She confronts Jack about it and learns that he and Jin are playing the game. Sol reminds them that the stars, Augie's countdown, and this VR game are virtual realities. He believes that Vera wasn't herself when she played the game, so it's possible that the VR manipulated her in some way. Augie makes them promise they'll stop playing, but later, Jack and Jin play the game at the same time. She needs his help as she wants to propose a radical idea. They play two-player mode in Tudor England. Follower welcomes them and reveals that the Pope is about to make his decision. Jin and Jack meet the Pope and share their proposal to explain the behavior of the sun. Jin realized that the planet is part of a three-body star system. She explains that if their planet revolves around one of the suns in stable orbit, so that's a stable era. However, if one of the other suns snatches their planet away, they wander through the gravitational fields of all three suns, and that's a chaotic era. The Pope doesn't like her answer and sentences her to death. They're about to burn her, but Jack saves her life. Just then, a trisolar day occurs, and the world is ending. Jack and Jin are the only survivors. They didn't die because they were right. So-Fan congratulates them as they successfully revealed the basic structure of the star system. Now they can play level 3 of the game. Clarence hands the VR to Thomas Wade. The engineers discovered that it has a retinal scanner, an oxygen meter, and a brainwave sensor. Someone is collecting a heap of biometric data. Wade deduces that while someone's playing the game, another at the other end is playing that someone, which means it's a recruitment tool. Augie tells her boss that her shutting down the project is temporary, as she needs time to recheck the engineering. Her boss reminds her that he sponsors her work visa, and she can't stay in England on a work visa if she's not working. Later, she activates the reaction chamber, but the countdown comes back. Jack and Jin play the game and find themselves in Chengdu, where Kublai Khan decreed his dome. They meet Follower, who warns Jin that she is running out of chances, and soon the world will end for good. Jack and Jin meet the Great Khan and share their proposal with him. Two other players have developed a science called calculus to predict the movement of the suns, and the calculations are performed by the Great Human Abacus that consists of 30 million soldiers. Jack realizes that the two men built a human computer to calculate the different versions of the unsolvable three-body problem. The soldiers that are holding flags run solar orbit computation software 3-body 1.0. Two soldiers then rush to the palace. The human abacus says that a chaotic era will commence in 3 days and will last 8 months. The Great Khan then orders the soldiers to dehydrate. They speed up time, but Jin tells the two players that their calculations won't hold up in the long run. The Great Khan orders his soldiers to boil Jack and Jin. Jin speeds up time to prove to the Khan that she is right and that the two other players are wrong. The Great Khan sees as the three suns align and eclipse one another. It's a syzygy that causes the planet to be under the gravitational force of all three suns. Everyone gets lifted from the ground and torn apart. Jin is unable to save Follower. She realizes that their goal isn't solving the three-body problem, but to save people and help them survive. So-Fan shows up and praises them, as they correctly determined their true purpose in the game, so she invites them to level 4. It turns out Mr. Evans is behind the recruitment tool and has been watching Jin and Jack all along. Felix informs Evans about the two new candidates and how Jin is attached to Follower. Evans decides to have Jack and Jin vetted for the London summit. Evan then speaks to someone that he refers to as his lord by radio and tells them the tale of Hansel and Gretel. He is teaching them about humanity and fear. The Lord claims that for them, fear is something they experience as one. They believe that Evan ceased to be afraid as he contacted another planet. It seems that the Lord is an alien being, and Evan explains that Wenji was the one who contacted them. The alien being tells Evans that a lack of fear leads to extinction, so humanity must learn to fear again. Evans promises to teach them. Jane gets an invitation to a place, so she and Jack head there. Tatiana welcomes them and congratulates them for being the only two people in the UK to make it this far. She explains how they've been so impressed by their work, as Jane figured out that the home world was part of a three-body system, and that what mattered is not the planet but its people. She asks them to start playing level 4. Jack and Jane find themselves in a wasteland. So-Fan and Follower welcome them. They reveal that they are an advanced species of aliens, and that there is no solution to the three-body problem. Follower speeds up time through millennia and shows them how no computer can predict the behavior of three bodies indefinitely. With 3 suns in the sky, every civilization ends in chaos. There will eventually be a cataclysm from which they cannot recover. Their planet will be ripped in half, or pulled into one of the suns, or expelled into space forever. Since they know their planet is doomed, they need to flee and find a new home. When they received the invitation to Earth, they knew their destination. Sofan explains that they built an interstellar fleet of 1,000 ships as their final hope of civilization, number 9478. They're on their way to Earth. Most of the alien species have to stay behind, as the Count said, if one of them survives, they all survive. Follower asks Jack and Jin if humans will welcome them, because without their help, they won't make it. Jack and Jin take off the VR helmets. Tatiana reveals that the aliens are called the Santi, and the first person to make contact with them was from China, meaning Wenji. Santi Ren means three-body people in Chinese. The Santi are coming to Earth from an unstable three-body star system 4 light-years away. The aliens designed the VR technology and the game to share their story with the humans. Jack thinks it's all a scam and leaves. Jin stays and learns that Tatiana and the others are holding a summit for Jin and the other level 4 champions from around the world to welcome them to the organization. Tatiana knows that Jin escaped a flood in Hubei as a child before she moved to New Zealand, so she must know how the Senti feel. Jack heads home and finds Tatiana in one of the rooms. He warns her that there are cameras in every room. She attacks him and says that all he had to do was keep playing. She then makes herself invisible as the cameras record her. In London 1982, Wenji and Mike Evans talk about embracing power in order to fight power. She then tells him about what she did on the hilltop. Augie and Jin watch the video footage of Jack getting killed. Clarence and Thomas Wade believe Tatiana is the one who killed him, and maybe she erased herself from the footage. Wade mentions how strange it is that Vera recruited 5 geniuses to Oxford, but now she and Jack are dead. He adds that it's also interesting that they want Augie to stop work, but they want Jin to work for them. Wade suggests Jin attend the summit and help him catch the culprit who murdered Jack. Clarence found Mike Evans and shares the good news with Wade. Evans is living on Panamax oil tanker with 1,000 people. The tanker is called Judgment Day. The people on board believe in the Senti and they're looking forward to meeting their lord. Evans talks to the Senti or his lord through the radio. The Senti warns him that his enemies know about the summit and know where he is as they're watching him right now. The Lord assures him that nothing will happen to him and the followers as the aliens will protect them. Mike Evans then reads the Senti the Little Red Riding Hood story. The Lord doesn't understand the story nor why the little girl remains in the house, despite knowing that the wolf intends to eat her. Evans realizes that the Senti don't lie and that they communicate through thought. The Lord then learns that humans lie and asks to speak to the wolf in the tale, but Evans points out that the wolf doesn't exist, as it's just a story. The Lord realizes that the story he just told is a lie about a liar. Evans promises to help the aliens understand them better. The Lord then announces that they need to consider this, as a liar cannot be trusted, and them aliens cannot coexist with liars. The Lord says, "We are afraid of you," then they go silent. A person in a suit runs a retinal scan on Jin, then drive her to the summit. Jin asks questions about the event, and she learns that their Lord will take care of them all. They reach a warehouse packed with people. Tatiana welcomes her and apologizes about Jack. Jin wants to know why the universe works the way it does. Tatiana assures her that their Lord knows the answers. She reveals that the people there have been her family since she was a little girl, and adds that their founder is coming. Wade wonders how Evans got off the boat without them seeing him. It turns out the founder of the movement is Wenji. She welcomes Jin in Mandarin Chinese. Wenji says that when she was a young woman, she saw her country torn apart and her family destroyed. She saw human beings cut each other to pieces, all in the name of progress. Now humanity continues to destroy each other and the world around them. She believes that the Senti are now coming to share their knowledge with them and teach them how to survive and thrive, but it will take them 4 centuries to arrive. Now it's up to them and their children to prepare the world for their arrival and prepare their descendants to welcome them. She, as well as her partner in the movement, Mike Evans, and their Lord, the Senti, thank the attendees. Wenji promises to give the Senti the Earth as a gift. so they can do with it what humans could not, and mend what they have broken. Just then, the cops storm the place. Wenji orders her people not to resist, as what's happening is their lord's will. The cops then zip-tie people. Tatiana notices as Jin is getting escorted out, so she shoots the cop. A gunfight ensues and several people get shot. Jin falls and Tatiana is about to shoot her, but Clarence steps in and saves her. Alex calls Jin and she tells him that she is being driven somewhere safe. She then tells him something insane but true about all of them. She says it started a long time ago, before they were born. A flashback to 1984, North Atlantic Ocean, shows Wenji and Evans landing on Judgment Day. Evans assures her that this will be their own research base, with no borders or politics. Wenji sees their transmission center and comments that it took her 8 years to receive a response last time. But Evans reveals that the aliens have been trying to reach her this whole time, ever since they got her message, and she's very important to them. The Senti are very curious to learn more about them, and they want to teach them about themselves. In the present, Wade questions Wenji about Judgment Day, but she comments that they've got her because the Senti led them. She warns Wade that he has no idea what the Senti can do. They're coming, and when they arrive, he'll be so grateful. Thomas Wade visits Raj and tells him that he needs him for a very important mission. Wenji informs Clarence that the Senti weren't coming for over 400 years. He wonders why she invited the aliens to come to Earth, and she explains that their civilization is no longer capable of solving its own problems. She adds that the Lord allowed Clarence to capture her, which means she is no longer valuable and what she knows is not a threat. It turns out Mike Evans is Vera's father, and Wenji hid the truth from her because she claims her daughter wasn't strong enough. Clarence points out that it takes 4 years for a radio signal to get from Earth to the Senti's planet, and another 4 to get a response. But Evans spends most of his life on a ship. He surmises that there is a faster way to communicate, but faster than light communication is impossible. Wenji wishes she could show Clarence what the future looks like. Wade and Clarence believe that Evans keeps a record of his communication with the Senti. They have 400 years to come up with a plan, but they can't plan without intelligence. Clarence points out that they need to get their hands on the hard drive, which is somewhere on Judgment Day. Clarence shares that Judgment Day just booked a slot at the Panama Canal Authority for next month. Mike Evans still tries to contact the Senti and promises that he'll continue to serve them, but the aliens refuse to speak to him again. Clarence needs Augie to resume production on the nanofibers, as he has one shot to stop Evans. Augie does as he says, and the numbers don't come back. She is thrilled and hugs him. Clarence surmises that the Lord has stopped protecting his flock. Will learns that Jack left him half of his estate, which amounts to £20 million. Saul advises him to find the best oncologist and the latest treatments. Will says that his cancer spread too far and he doesn't want to spend the time he's got left flying around getting jabbed, prodded, and scanned. In Panama, Raj's team installed the nanofibers across the canal 26 hours till the Judgment Day passes. Augie wonders if there is another way instead of killing innocent people on the ship, but Wade reminds her that what's important to the human race is defeating an enemy coming to their world to take it for themselves. Later, Raj tells her that he thinks they're at war. The ship arrives and the nanofibers slice it to pieces, killing everyone on board. Mike Evans retrieves the hard drive but eventually dies while holding on to the gadget. Augie watches as the whole ship crumbles and sinks. Raj and Wade inspect the remains and find the hard drive intact. However, 2 weeks later, and the analyst is unable to crack it, as it's layered with quantum encryption that is 20 years ahead of theirs. Clarence advises him to crack it open to have a look inside. Just then, the hard drive opens. Clarence deduces that the aliens want them to see what's inside. They find a file called Sophon that consists of 100 petabytes, the equivalent of 100 million gigabytes. Wade informs Wenji of Evans' death and the destruction of their ship. She believes the Senti are coming to save them from themselves. He hands her a recording of the conversations between Evans and the Senti. Wenji realizes that the Senti stopped trusting humans as they're afraid of them. At the Black Palace, Wade shows Jane the Sophon file and wonders what it means. They both put on the VR helmets in order to see what the Senti want to show them. They find themselves in a desolate cityscape. Sophon explains that the Senti don't look anything like she does. She reveals that her species is doomed because their fleet will take 400 years to reach Earth, and by the time they do, humans will have surpassed them. Sophon explains that humans will destroy their fleet, then come back and destroy their world to make sure they never threaten them again. Wade surmises that the Senti have figured out a way to disarm humans and keep them from moving forward. Sophon admits that they're going to kill their science using their Sophons. She explains that a Sophon is a proton that they have turned into a sentient computer. Jane thinks it's impossible to make a computer that small, but Sophon replies that the universe has more dimensions than the 3 they occupy. They're hidden and folded up far too small for them to see, but the Senti have the technology to unfold them. They can summon energies that humans can't imagine and focus them on a single proton. So when they unfold its higher dimensions, even a tiny proton becomes something very large. Wade and Jane see how the proton unfolds and contains the planet. Sophon adds that they make a mind as large as the world. Wade and Jane see how the unfolded proton glows, then speaks, saying that it is awake and aware and it understands its purpose. Then it returns to its original size. The Sophon explains that the Senti used all their resources to make 4 Sophons, 2 pairs of 2. Each pair is entangled, connected on the quantum level. 2 remained with the Senti, and the other 2 were sent to humans. Everything they see and hear allows the Senti to see and hear at the same time, even when they are light years apart. Because a proton has no mass, accelerating them to nearly light speed is easy. The Sophons entered the solar system months earlier, and they were sent to particle accelerators. They destroyed the science that could defeat the Senti. Therefore, the answers to the humans' questions become chaotic and meaningless, causing the suicide of Vera and the other scientists. In place of truth, the Sophons give humans miracles like the blinking stars. They wrap the humans' world in illusions, like when they made Augie see the countdown. The Sophons are everywhere, always watching, learning all of humanity's secrets and uncovering their lies. They vow to teach humans how to fear again. Wade and Jane take off their VR headsets and see as the monitors start to flicker. The Sophons hijack every screen in the world to broadcast a message to humanity, saying you are bugs. The Sophon unfolds and envelops the earth, reflecting its surface into the sky. An eye appears and Tatiana looks up at it and smiles. The Eye in the Sky event causes mass panic worldwide. Protests erupt when people find out that the Senti are headed to Earth, despite assurances that it will take the aliens 400 years to reach Earth. Also, religious sects have emerged devoted to the worship of the Senti, with some people committing suicide. Governments promise to begin preparations for future generations to protect the planet. Thomas Wade plans on fighting back, so he gathers the most accomplished engineers in the world to help him with his endeavor. He believes that the Senti technology moves slow and the humans moves fast. That's why they need to keep developing the technology they have. Also, Wade plans to launch a probe to intercept the enemy fleet. He tasks Jane with finding him a way to get a probe to 1% light speed or faster, using existing technology. Later, she meets with the engineers and proposes using nuclear weapons to propel the probe, but the bombs won't be on it. The probe itself would have very little mass, making it easier to accelerate. She plans to use nuclear pulse propulsion. As the probe passes each bomb, they detonate one after another and accelerate it, bringing it closer to the fleet. Will, Sol, and Augie watch the news that report on the Start Our Destination, which is a fundraiser for the war efforts. It is attracting the attention of the world's wealthiest people, as they have acquired ownership rights over stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Raj wants to work for Wade as he has a background in nuclear engineering and naval strategy, so he should be on his space fleet team. Wade decides to assign Raj to the moon base as he is planning to assemble the ships since it has lower gravity. It will allow them to build larger ships. Augie is drinking heavily and Jin notices and urges her to slow down. Augie isn't happy that Raj and Jin are working for Wade, that she describes as a murderer and a fascist. Augie isn't worried about the Senti since they're 400 years away, and everyone she knows and loves will be dead before they get here. Jin needs her to design a radiation nanosail, but Augie refuses to design any weapons for Wade. Jin knows that Will has cancer, and together they have fun on the beach. Later, Will is shown reading a book of fairy tales. Jin confronts Raj about the Panama operation. He explains that it was classified. Jin laments the fact that he doesn't seem bothered with 1,000 people getting killed. He reminds her that those people murdered her friend Jack. He adds that the work she's doing for Wade is in preparation for war. Jin says that what she's doing and what he did don't even compare. She reveals that Augie is feeling gutted and has been drinking herself to sleep every night. Will praises Augie for her knowledge and talent and reminds her that Jin needs her help. Augie stresses that Wade is a monster, but Will reminds her that Jin wouldn't do anything if it wasn't right. He knows that she must do it for the greater good. Augie listens to him and goes to see Wade. Jin informs Wade of an issue regarding the probe, as it could be destroyed by the Senti. Wade assures her, saying that the aliens will pick it up, as he isn't sending a camera but a human being. Clarence releases Wenji and tasks someone with providing him with a full report of her movements. Wenji goes home and tries to contact the Senti, saying that she still has an idea or two left in her, and centuries from now, there may be a fair fight or no fight at all. The episode ends with Will deciding to buy a star. Will shows Saul the star he bought from the Stars Our Destination. He picked a red star because it's visible to the naked eye and spent $19.5 million on it. He bought it for Jin and he makes Saul promise not to tell her. He then faints, so Saul rushes him to the hospital. Jin checks up on him and learns that he's doing well. She then receives a box that contains the certificate for her star. She thinks that either a crazy rich person bought it for her or someone is messing with her. Jin and Wade discuss the Staircase Probe project with the scientists. They explain that by traveling 1% of light speed, it will take 200 years for the Staircase Probe to reach the Senti fleet, and the probe's occupant will die by then. Dr. Demikov managed to put a chimp called Kolya into hibernation for a month. He believes that if it works for Kolya, it will work for a person. However, when he brings Kolya out, the chimp eats a banana and vomits. Augie informs Jin that she is working on the probe sail. It's a nanofiber weave that is a lot more complicated to make. She needs to consider heat and stress tolerance. She assures Jin that she can make it work. Augie confides in her friend that she saw what the world did to her family, so she wanted to build something for them, but she ended up on the wrong side. Jin assures her that they're building the future for humanity. Wade tells Jin and Co. that they needed 1,000 nuclear bombs for the staircase, but they're only getting 300. Demikov's smallest hibernation rig that he can supply weighs over a ton. To accelerate the probe to the required speed, the heaviest payload it can carry is under 2 kilograms. Wade proposes sending a brain. It will be enough for the Senti to rebuild the rest, and if they do, Wade will have a man on the inside. Wade challenges the Senti to get their hands on a brain if they want to understand humanity. He promises to send them someone smart, someone who knows about physics, chemistry, and rocket science, someone who is willing to die and who is dying already. He tells Jin and Augie that their friend Will fits the description. If the Senti find him, he can learn about things they wouldn't know otherwise. Wade calls a person and informs him of the project that requires everyone's participation. Wade wants him to spearhead the project and bring them all into line. He then asks the man if he's ever heard the term wall-facer. Augie tells her boss that she's taken her work with her. He remarks that it doesn't belong to her. Augie says it belongs to everybody, as it can make life better for the people who need it most. She then reveals that she just uploaded all of the research, the specs on their equipment, their work on upscaling and applications. Her boss vows to sue her. She dares him to arrest her fast, as her flight leaves in 3 hours. Jin tells Will about the Staircase project, and he mentions the fairy tales book that Jin offered him for his birthday once. He decides to take part in the project and confesses his feelings for her. Wenji meets with Saul and tells him that she failed more people than anyone ever. She then shares a joke about Einstein's violin, and when the angels warned him never play with God. She thinks jokes are important and we wouldn't survive without them, leaving Saul confused. Wade asks Will to sign a loyalty oath to the human race. Will won't sign it as he doesn't feel any loyalty to humanity. He thinks the Senti might end up being better than them. Wade tells Will he's perfect for the staircase project. He explains to Jin that Will is their man because he's not their man. He could actually be of benefit to infiltrate the Senti. If they sense that he doesn't have any loyalty to humankind, he'll be of much greater use to them. That's why the Senti will go out of their way to pick him up. Sofan addresses Tatiana as she is eating in her trailer. Tatiana thought the Senti were done speaking to them, but Sofan says they were done speaking to Evans, but they're not done speaking to her, because she's part of something much larger than herself, and they need her. Wenji is at the airport about to board the plane that is flying to Beijing. She tells Clarence's man who's been tailing her that she changed her seat so they could sit together, because it will be nice to have someone to talk to. Wade informs Jin that the first ICBM launches are on Friday. The staircase bombs will be in place in a few weeks, and they'll be ready to send Will on his journey. She leaves when he reveals that Will gave her the star. Saul urges Will to think this through, because when the Senti find him, they will rebuild him, and maybe they just turn him into a program and read his mind. Saul points out that the Senti can bring him back to run experiments on him. But Will consents 5 times and bids his friend farewell. Jin shows up late and watches as the doctor removes Will's brain. She cries and Saul hugs her. Wenji and Clarence's assistant drive to the Red Coast base. She reminisces the day when she was brought into the base. She looks at the rundown satellite dish. She then walks to the cliff's edge and looks down. Tatiana shows up, and Wenji says she thought the Lord was done with them, but Tatiana says not all of them. The 2 women hug. Tatiana won't let her jump to her death. She promises to give her something better, gentle and beautiful. Wenji tells Tatiana that when she was her age, this was the most beautiful country in the world. Tatiana says it will be better when the Lord gets there. Wenji wonders why the Lord sent Tatiana to her. Tatiana deduces that Wenji fulfilled her purpose, so it's just her time. Wenji is glad that the Lord hasn't forgotten her. Wenji wanted to see one more sunset from that place. She and Tatiana watch it together. Tatiana tells her that she deserves a rest as she worked so hard for so long. Saul and his lover Nora are outside discussing the future and the alien invasion when a car crashes into another, then crashes into Nora, killing her. Clarence questions Saul about his meeting with Wenji at the graveyard, because 3 days later she was murdered in China. Clarence believes that someone tried to murder Saul. Saul believes that what happened earlier was an accident, but Clarence explains that the 2 cars that collided on the street and that hit Nora were under autonomous control. He believes that someone was targeting Saul. He is alive because a kid on a skateboard bumped into him. Clarence orders Saul to wear a bulletproof vest. They then get on a plane that flies them to the United Nations headquarters. Saul attends a ceremony of the Planetary Defense Council, where the Wallfacer project is announced to the world. The Secretary General warns that the Senti have declared war upon humans, so they must defend themselves. To them, humans are an open book, and the Sofans can see and hear whatever they want. But they're not all powerful, because they cannot read minds. She introduces the Wallfacer project. She states that they have chosen 3 people to formulate and direct strategic plans that they develop entirely in their own minds. They will share them with no one until the time is right to execute. The 3 people will be called Wallfacers after the ancient Buddhist name for meditators. The Wallfacers will be granted great authority, allowing them to exploit all the resources as long as they violate no international laws. 3 people are chosen: a Chinese general, a Kurdish war hero, and Saul Durand, a physicist. Saul is shocked and tells the Secretary General that they made a mistake because he is a low-level researcher. She reminds him that the enemy will always be watching him, and the enemy knows why he was chosen because they think Saul is special. He rejects the position of Wallfacer. She tells him that she understands and that he is free to do anything. Clarence wants to get Saul a security team to escort him, but Saul rejects it. As he steps outside, someone shoots him. Jane tells Wade that she wants some seeds of corn, wheat, and chili pepper included in the staircase capsule because Will loves spicy food. He refuses because added weight leads to a slower final cruising speed for the spacecraft, which will delay the encounter with the enemy fleet. Jane threatens to resign, but Wade says she won't do it, because from now on, the only real science getting funding is for planetary defense, and Jane wants to be a scientist. Saul gets hospitalized for a broken rib and a little internal bleeding. Clarence assures him that they caught the shooter, and Saul wants to see him to know his enemy. Saul stresses that he turned down the position of wall-facer, but Clarence smiles, because the whole point of being a wall-facer is to trick and lie to the Senti. Later, the shooter tells Saul he is sorry he didn't aim for his head. Then his mission would be complete, and Saul would be free of his. Saul insists that he rejected the wall-facer position, but the shooter calls him a funny man and proudly calls himself a soldier in the army of the Lord. Saul is baffled as he rejected the position, but the Secretary General still wants to protect him. She explains that a wall-facer's work is carried out in secret, and no one knows what's inside Saul's mind, including the Senti. No one knows why Saul was chosen, and he'll have to find his own answer. Tatiana finds a VR helmet with a note that reads, "If one of us survives, we all survive." Saul goes to see Jane at the launch of the Staircase project and confides that Will loved her, and he hopes someone loves him that much someday. Jane thinks someone already does. Augie is shown helping a village with her innovative water filters. The probe and its sail are deployed. It then approaches the first nuclear detonation and it is successful. The probe begins to accelerate. After the third detonation, one of the cords connecting the probe to the sail breaks. Alarms start blaring and the probe deviates from the predicted value. It means it won't approach the rest of the bombs. The probe is then shown vanishing into space. On his plane, Wade is contacted by Sofan, who apologizes for the failure of the Staircase project, as they would have liked to meet Will. She hopes to meet Wade if his hibernation technology works. The electricity then goes out. Wade says if they're watching him, he must be doing something right. Sofan calls him a strong leader. She lets him know that there will be a place for him when they arrive, as he is part of their plan. The lights flicker, and she shows up inside the plane, saying they will always be with him, and he'll see whatever they want him to see, until the day he dies. Wade sees a retinal countdown, and his dead body sitting next to him with his eyes missing. Saul asks Jane how long she thinks Will is going to float out there. She replies it will be 6,000 years before he passes another star, and he won't fall into its gravity well. Another 5 million years before he leaves the Milky Way. Clarence shows up and takes them for a drive. They reach a place filled with cicadas. Clarence tells them that people hate bugs and have been trying to get rid of them forever. By spraying pesticides from planes, they put poison in the ground, they try to sterilize them and step on them, but they're not going anywhere. He then tells them that they need to get back, as they've got work to do.